Hello there, Parth Sharma this side, bringing you chess classics in which I am covering top 15 games played by Vishwanathan Anand. If you are new to this channel, then don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel. If you are already subscribed, then do press the bell icon for future notifications, and if you like my work, then do consider supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. You will find the links in the description because your support is my motivation which keeps me going. Also, you will find the link of the, or I should say the PGN of this game that I would be covering in this video. So happy days, isn't it? At number 4, this famous game touted by Anand as one of his favorite games, and no wonder it sits at number 4 in our list of top 15 games played by Anand. And this is his game against Vasily Ivanchuk from Linares 1992, and this wasn't played in the conventional Linares tournament. This was the private match that Louis Rentro, the sponsor of the tournament, held after the conventional Linares tournament that took place that year. And people were quite disappointed that Ivanchuk and Anand, at that time they were the emerging stars, they didn't make the tournament, and I should say didn't make to the candidates tournament. So he decided to hold this match between these two emerging stars. Like today we have Nihal Sareen, Pragnananda, and from overseas Ali Reza, Artemiev, these kind of superstars. So they were quite of that similar level in 1992 and thereabouts. So people assume that this match might take place in the future, so they hold this little private match, a series of probably 8 games. So yeah, this is game 1 of that, and it sits at number 4, Anand's positional masterpiece, many would regard it as. So without further ado, let's have a go. Ivanchuk is white, Anand is black in this game, and Ivanchuk opens with pawn to e4. We go to the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, d6, d4, cd4, knight d4, knight f6, knight c3, all conventional stuff. Ivanchuk must be expecting knight off or either dragon from Anand, but in this game he plays knight to c6, another conventional opening. It's a book line, and after bishop to g5 we transpose it into a Richter-Rauser variation, where bishop has come to g5 as early as move 6. Well, in knight off also, after a6, bishop g5 has become a main line. So no surprises that white plays its bishop to g5, and the simple idea is to play queen d2 and castle queenside ASAP. Black plays pawn to e6 just to play bishop to e7 and to castle this side. Queen d2, a6. So now we transformed it into a mainline Sicilian with Scheveningen sort of pawn structure, with pawn to e6 being played, but there is no bishop to c4 from white, which means that still we are not in knight off situation, although pawn on e6, and not in Sicilian Scheveningen structure, since the pawn on e6 is played, and even though the pawn on e6 or pawn on a6 is played, Ivanchuk castles queenside and now pawn to h6. So his basic idea is to exchange here, to prompt white to exchange here, and after that say queen takes, and then structure would be fine. But Ivanchuk tucks back the bishop to e3, knight takes on d4, bishop takes on d4, simplification of the position, and now the conventional Rauser structure with pawn to b5. Clear intention is to play bishop to b7 and to fianchetto this bishop on this long diagonal so that it controls as many squares as it can. Also try to put pressure on f3 square. Beg your pardon, on e4 square. So understandably f3 was played, and now queen to a5. So generating activity on the queen side, because normally in Sicilian type of structures white tends to go this side towards the king side, whereas black's intention is to exploit this open file which is bang in front of this king to try and bring rook c8, and if in a good world, try to push these pawns as down the board as it can to create more queenside weaknesses in white's position. But the thing which can go in favor of white in this case, that white has 4 pawns on the king side, whereas black has 2 pawns against this 3. So white has 3-2 majority on the queen side, which would mean that black would still need extra resources to generate a successful attack on this white king. And 2 pawns are generally not enough to create an advanced attack. a3 is played so that b4 is somewhat stopped temporarily, and funnily enough, this position, both these players had the very similar position in 2001, where Anand was white and Ivanchuk was black, and Ivanchuk played bishop to e7 in that game. And as we will go through, you will see even more and more similarities of the position. e5 played by Anand, and as we talk about that 2001 game, the position somewhat reached, I would simply say, bishop to f2, and after bishop to e6, bishop to e1. This was played by Anand. Ivanchuk as black in that game tucked queen to c7, but in that game the bishop was on e7 by Ivanchuk. It was played bishop to e7, and we will come to that structure, the normal structure. And Anand's second during that time, Patrick Wolf, had the very same position. In fact, in that game, instead of bishop to e6, Patrick Wolf in 1993 played bishop to h4. And both players, Anand won that game in 2001 with white side against Ivanchuk, which meant that Ivanchuk's tricks, or I should say Anand's tricks played by Ivanchuk, didn't work on him because he had seen ins and outs of the variation. So anyway, a3 was played, and then e5 by Anand, and Ivanchuk tucked his bishop back to e3 instead of f2. Bishop to e6, king to b1, and now bishop to e7. The very similar structure, remember. This is the structure, and in that game that Anand won against Ivanchuk in 2001, he had the bishop on f2 so that he was able to play bishop to e1. Very significant move indeed. And Patrick Wolf, who had this very structure in that game, in 1993 game, played bishop to h4. So this bishop now to e3, it cannot go to e1, and what a world of a difference that makes. And here Anand pointed out that Ivanchuk should have played h4, and we will see the point. Why did he say so? Ivanchuk played pawn to g4, and this turned out to be a slightly positional mistake, as we will see. Anand continues his plan by playing rook to b8. His basic idea is to play pawn to b4 in a good world, if he manages to do so, so that you can tuck this knight away, and also to, I would say, initiate the exchange of this pawn to open up this king more towards the queen side. So Ivanchuk shuts down that plan by playing knight to d5. So now there is tension between the queens, as you can see, and also this knight wants to take this knight with check, and which it actually does. Queen takes d2 was played, and now there comes an intermediate check, and now Anand had a tremendous position up his sleeve. Well, you can play bishop takes f6, but the problem is that this d pawn, after taking the queen, this d pawn somewhat becomes really loose, and it loses time for white, because for black, because then you have to bring this bishop back again, and in the meantime this bishop can come to either e2 or to g2 to put this rook here and to generate more pressure on this backward pawn. A very tricky situation. However, after knight takes f6 check, Anand has this beautiful idea. He takes with the pawn, and his second Patrick Wolf at that time was staggered at this, looking at this, and he thought that what is he doing? He didn't see that this idea, and all this is working because of this pawn to g4 move, which Anand said was quite of an inaccuracy. Instead, he should have played pawn to h4 at move 15, and after rook takes d2, h5. Now this is the point. If this pawn was on g2 and this pawn was on h4, then this h5 move looks a little bit of a nonsensical move because it doesn't make any sense, and it fixes the pawn structure on the king side, which means that there won't be any counter-attacking chances on the king side if black gets into a trouble. So there is no, I would say, get off way, or I should say, an escape route of the game. But now playing g4, now h5 suddenly becomes a very resourceful move. It holds a lot of significance in the position, as we can see. So now he has to make a choice. If he plays g5, that eventually loses the pawn. So, and if he plays h3, then takes, and now bishop takes, that pawn will be pinned, so it won't be able to capture it. So a tricky decision to make. Should he take here, or should he play rook to g1? Probably taking here would have been the best option, as then white would have chance to play pawn to h4 and to close out matters. But here Ivanchuk plays rook to g1. This was all being seen when Anand played this g takes h6, a paradoxical move. And Anand takes on g4, all planned, and f takes, and now I will give you some time. Take a pause and think what Anand played in this position. All was planned when he played g takes f6. This was all planned, and now Anand executes this plan even more on this move 20th. So take a pause, as I said, and think what Anand played in this position. Well, if you found it out, that's awesome. And if you just want to enjoy the show, bishop to c4, another paradoxical move, just like this. And it looks like black has committed a whole lot of positional sins in this position. So there are double left pawns. This bishop is actually a good bishop compared to this, which is biting down on these two pawns. And suddenly you are exchanging your good bishop, and this white bishop actually is a bad bishop because this bishop hasn't developed itself, and you're exchanging your active piece to a piece which hasn't moved since the start of the game. Move 20, this piece hasn't moved yet, and you're exchanging your good bishop with that. So another paradoxical move, and it looks like that he has violated all positional rules, but in fact this serves a very good significance. If bishop takes c4, then pawn takes c4, king to a2. Now this is the point. This h3 square is available for that rook. Not only it is attacking this bishop, now this is being a light square, which means that this rook cannot be dislodged by any of the other pieces. And it also freezes this pawn on h2, which means that he can pressurize this by playing rook to h8 in a good time after playing king to d7, which means that this pawn on h2 will always remain a vulnerable spot. Not to forget, black, if he gets c3 on time and try to exchange here, or if b pawn is pushed, then pushing this pawn even down to a4, then things will be very bad for black, or I should say very bad for white, and black will be living a charmed life then. So bishop c4, bishop takes c4, not possible because of those positional weaknesses that white has here. He plays pawn to b3. So taking guard of that. So now he wants to take, first of all he's threatening taking with the pawn, so he forces this, and now rook to h3, now freezing this pawn and attacking this bishop simultaneously. And not to forget, now this e3 pawn is weakened. Now his idea is to press by playing king to d7, king to e6, d5, and pressing over here, playing rook to h4 to gobble up this pawn and create two connected passed pawns in the center. What a tremendous strategy that Anand has up his sleeve. Totally strategical positional game, a game which we expect from like Karpov or by Petrosian. But this is Anand showing his prowess. He can sometimes be Tal, he can sometimes be Capablanca, he can sometimes be Fischer, he can sometimes be an Alekhine. An Alekhine, I would mean that like playing like an Alekhine, playing like Alekhine. So all those things, all those traits Anand possesses, and that's why Kramnik once remarked him as one of the greatest versatile players. So anyway, coming to the point, if this bishop moves, then things start to get really teasy, because after king d7, rook h8, this rook coming here, and things look very nasty. So rook e2, so he doesn't want to bring this rook here to c3 to freeze even this pawn as well. So if bishop moves, then rook c3 would be devastating. So now king to d7, and now pawn to g5. So he's not interested taking in this way, because this pawn is already protected by the bishop. So he wants to protect this pawn by playing king to e6, which is what he does, because if you take here, then this bishop suddenly comes to life and things can, I would say, get really unpleasant for in that case. So after g takes f6, now comes bishop to f6, and Ivanchuk tries to activate his bishop by playing bishop to d2, also stopping rook to c3, as you can see. And now bishop comes back to e7. So now Anand's idea is to play pawn to d5. First to play pawn to f6 and then pawn to d5 to get these two pair of passed pawns in the center of the board, which can initiate a devastating attack on white's forces. So he plays bishop to e1. So his idea is to create some sort of fortress by playing bishop to g3 and protecting this pawn. Not only protecting this pawn, if he tries to get a pleasant endgame, or I should say an endgame with material imbalance, then this pawn, this position, or this bishop coming here with this pawn, secured pawn on h2 might come a bit handy. f6 comes first, bishop to g3, there we go, and now d5 to get two connected passes. E takes d5, forced, king takes d5, now rook to f5, and this is a very tricky move by Ivanchuk. You can see this pawn here. If bishop takes a3, then rook takes f6, and suddenly white is in a good position, I should say, attacking position with so many weaknesses here. The pawn is en prise. This rook on b8 is directly into the line of the bishop on g3. Things can turn very unpleasant. Alternatively, if you play king to e6, then bishop takes e5 is a very neat tactic to simplify and to create a fortress of his own. If king takes f5, then bishop takes b8. You still cannot take the pawn, because the bishop on b8 is guarding that. And after bishop takes a3, bishop to g3, suddenly it looks like that white has held its ground, and this pawn will actually be tracked down. Although it looks like this king cannot come out because of the bishop taking guard of these two squares, but in fact you can simply play, let's say, king to a2 and to drive this bishop out, and it won't be sitting there for too long. And you can even simplify by playing pawn to c4, and the game would end in a draw. Anand doesn't want this. He plays king to c6, a brilliant idea again. And here Anand thought that rook f3 should have been a savior. And if, let's say, if black plays king to d7, then comes rook d2 check, and after king e6, now rook c3, and white has some attacking resources, for instance, to attack the pawn here. So it forces black to defensive, and put black into making some passive moves, which black doesn't want to, because he has done all the hard work, and the last thing that you want is to get a passive position and to ruin your advantage. However, after rook to f3, black can play rook to h5 or rook to h7 for that matter. But then comes rook c3 check, king b7. This king is somewhat cut, but then rook c8 can solve the matters, and this king can again come to life and to initiate promotion of one of these pawns, or if not promotion, then certainly some decisive advantage. So after king c6, rook f3, a better option, but Ivanchuk plays rook e to f2, and again some tricks up his sleeve. He would generally like to play this, or maybe looking like this pawn cannot advance because of this. So taking guard of all the threats, he plays rook to h6, just to guarding here. And by the way, these two pawns are somewhat fixed and they cannot move. So you need king to come closer to initiate the advancement of either of the pawns, or I should say both these pawns together. Ivanchuk should have played rook back to f3, and still black would still be better there, but king b2 somewhat allows this king to come back with advantage. King to d7, there we go. Rook to e2, bishop comes to d6, rook to f3, rook to c8, bishop to e1, and now king to e6. So now this king has come to its perfect square. Everything is somewhat defended. Now you have to get this rook under control, or I should say to give it a decent square such that it cannot be, I would say, it cannot get attacked. So rook d3 by Ivanchuk, rook to h7. So now his idea is to play this rook here and initiate attack here. Also, not to forget, the bishop is keeping an eye on the pawn on a3. Plays rook to g3, which turned out to be, I would say, a positional mistake again, because bishop c5, and suddenly there is a threat of playing this. I mean, not a direct threat, but I would say this is in the air. They place king to a2, rook to d7, and he is setting up a very nasty plan. And now rook to c3, and if you go rook d1, then bishop f2, and this bishop is pinned and actually would be lost, because b4 would be threatened, because this rook cannot be defended. So understandably, after rook to c3, Anand, before playing rook to d1, plays rook c to c7, and Ivanchuk thought that he should push his kingside pawns, and he plays pawn to h4. Perhaps rook g3 should have been a better idea. Anand plays rook to d1. His plan is pretty simple. Bishop to f2 was played, but then bishop d6, and now this is the difference. Playing rook to c7, this bishop can actually go back to d6, defending the rook. Rook to g3 by Ivanchuk, and now a subtle move, pawn to e4. So he's not only threatening the rook, but he's also threatening rook takes e4 and e5, which actually was played. Probably he should have keep pushing that pawn to h5, and after giving up this piece, rook to c3, bishop to e1, suddenly it's white who is black who is running out of activity, and this pawn, a very strong pawn on h5, might have been, I would say, black would still be winning in that case, but still it would have taken a tough work to convert it into a win. Ivanchuk took it, and now bishop e5, threatening mate in 1. So Ivanchuk had to take, and after f takes e5, king b2, rook to d2, Ivanchuk resigned the game. There's already a threat of playing rook c to c2 check. By the way, this threat is unstoppable because the bishop is on breeze. If bishop e3, then there we go. And it's all lost. This king is locked on the first rank. And this is totally hopeless for white and a dream position. Some people regard it as, I would say, one of Anand's masterpieces, and no wonder this sits at number 4 spot of our top 15 games by Vishwanathan Anand. Spectacular game this was, probably showing, in chess you can violate some of the rules, but the whole aim is to crunch everything into a little and to come out with a certain plan, and if it works, then there is no law which says that conventional is perfect. I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked my analysis. Tomorrow I will be bringing the game at number 3 of the list. Till then, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.